Welcome to the Choose Hard Podcast. I'm your host, Cody McBroom. I'm a father, husband, entrepreneur, and coach, and the founder of Tailored Coaching Method, a world-renowned online fitness and nutrition coaching company helping average people achieve above-average physiques and live above-average lives. This is part 2 of a 2-part series. So go check out part 1 on the Vigor Life Podcast. This is part 2 of a coaching episode myself and Luka did, and it is just honestly too damn hard to contain it to 1 hour, and we really want to be able to spread our messages across both of our audiences because we know that his audience is full of people that I can impact and my audience is full of people he can impact, and we work really well together. In fact, I met him when I was 18 years old. He began mentoring me. Then I started working for him and I trained with him for 6.5 years in his gym before leaving and creating my company, Tailored Coaching Method. 8 years later, we reconnected and we have literally been hanging out like every week ever since. In fact, I just got back from Nashville with him. So we've been putting out a lot of content together and we've been getting a lot of great feedback. So we figured, let's get together once a month and do some kind of table talk, which it's not called table talk because Dave Tate, Elite FTS, shout out to one of the GOATs in the strength world. He already has that name. It's a great podcast, but we are going to call it something, whether it's Coach's Corner, Coach's Talk. We haven't figured that out part yet, but we are going to be doing this at least once a month, and I'm very excited to connect with him, to collaborate with him, and honestly just put out a lot of great content with him. So do me a huge favor, go over to the Vigor Life Podcast, subscribe to that podcast, check out my last episode over there, and check out part 1 of this, whether you want to listen to that before or after this episode, this podcast. Regardless, you got to go check it out because it is a 2-part series right here that is phenomenal. And if you are a coach or if you're someone interested in coaching, there is no better place to go than to a podcast with myself and Luka because it is our life's work and we are honestly so passionate. It's not even a passion, it's obsession with coaching anything, fitness, nutrition, mindset, business, all that. So I'm not going to keep rambling on. I'm going to link a bunch of stuff in the show notes so you can go check out his podcast with me for part 1 of this 2-part series. And if you have any questions, if you have any content you want us to create together, make sure you reach out to both of us. Links to Instagram, email, all that will be in the description of this episode as well, because there is many more episodes to come with Luka and I. So without any further ado, let's get on to part 2 of the 2-part coaching series with myself and the one and only Luka Hocevar.
The greatest things in life all start with a challenge.
You must accept that everything is hard before it gets easy.
Everything you want in life begins with a hard path.
And this is the thing that's important, right? Because you could get, let's say you hired an online coach and you did a year with them, 6 months with them, and got really good results. And then you were like, all right, I'm going to try somebody else out. Fair, and sometimes, when I was growing up in industry, like that's what I would do. Like I would get all these different programs from people that I respected and I would do them. Like, and I do them fucking hard. You know what I mean? And then I have a lot of friends that are like kind of, best in the business, and they'd be like, hey, Luka, I'm gonna release this program. Would you do it? Tell me, what you think. And we'd usually all do it together and shit, right?
Yeah. I remember trying out FHT.
Yeah,
like the first one.
We started FHT and we went, man,
yeah.
we lifted too crazy on that. But it was great results, but it was like, all right, man, I don't know if I can do another 12 weeks like this. Yeah. But here's the thing. So imagine you went 6 months with one person, got great results, 6 months with another person, got great results. But it was like, the programs were so different, right? Now, if you kind of went under the hood, you'd see that the principles are there.
Yeah.
Right. But
if it's good programming.
Correct. If it's good. But on paper, it could look very different. Right. And you could say like, well, these are very different. Like, but they're working because there's principles to it. And maybe, I always tell this story of, I'm blanking. It was Stuart McGill and the guy that started, I'm going to blank on his name. No, it was the guy that started DNS. Oh. And now this is going to be like a rehab example, but I promise you, this will make sense when I speak it through. It was some big symposium, and they brought an athlete that was struggling with back pain, and it was like the guy from DNS would walk out, and then McGill would work on him like for I don't know how long, and at the end, like his back pain was significantly better, right? And then McGill would leave, and then this guy would come back in and bring another athlete in struggling with low back pain, and go through all this process, and this guy's back is better, you know what I mean? And it's like they both come back in. The path, the GPS to it was completely different. The philosophies were different. Shit, both of them worked. You know what I mean? So underlyingly, there was obviously, and I guarantee you, I don't know the details, but like there's many principles of what happened that got those people better. Strength training, same thing, right?
Yeah.
Like where you might look at the program, but it's like if you really look at it, it's like, well, look, there's components of this, and this is why you're getting results. And again, sometimes I also think that the example of the conditioning program that people didn't want to continue, what may happen is that like you did really well on a certain program, right? And mentally you're like, and it could be a season of life, so think of me for I don't know how long doing lower, upper, right? Submax effort lower, submax effort upper, dynamic effort lower, rep effort upper or dynamic effort upper. That was like my Bible, right? Meaning I worked well for me. I loved it. That I get busier, wait till you gets pregnant. Man, I switch it up to a 3-day a week, right? So it might even be a season of life. Somebody does really well with something and they're like, this just doesn't work for me anymore. And then they do something different. And on paper, it might look different, but all the principles are still there.
Yeah.
Right. But now maybe, hey, like you have more recovery time that you didn't have before, hey, back squats, they're not a bad exercise, but man, they just don't sit well with you. Every time you push it on that, fucking your hip is bugging or back is bugging, whatever. You get the pendulum, hack squat, Jesus Christ, gains. Of course gains, because like every time I can push the shit out of it. And before, I always would be a little trepidatious on the lift, right? And I've seen that. I've seen clients that come in to do an exercise and I'm watching them and like, I just see like a cringe when they're doing it. Hey, what's going on? Every time I go past this point, I feel it a little bit in the hip. How long has that been going on for? Years,
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shit, okay. Then we do something different. Do you feel it there? No, I don't. Then they push the shit out of it. And it's like the next 3-4 months, they have the best gains of their life. Right. And it's like that type of stuff is things that are really difficult to be taught on paper. Yeah. I mean, you could actually write it out. Like even saying it now on a show, somebody might go like, oh yeah, for real. But then it's like, you're not seeing it. You're not experiencing it. And it was a funny story too. Me and Dalin Saladino were talking when I first got the pendulum. Dude, I went 36 weeks straight. Every week was pendulum squat, right? And I hit some crazy numbers too. Like I'm like beating my offensive lineman on like the weight that I can move, right? And Don was like, dude, so I went and did a DEXA to get my lean body mass of every muscle part, and then I started like, and then I did it later, like 4 or 5 months or whatever. And it's like, dude, I put on like I don't know how many pounds of muscle on my quads, and I'm like, what? Like my weight didn't really change too much. And I'm like, what was I doing? It's like, oh yeah, I started going to a gym that had a pendulum squat and I did it every week. And like my legs grew. And by the way, in that time, my quads got the biggest probably that I've had them, right? Like, and it was like, and I was like, well, but I've been doing all these other things. I mean, obviously, like pendulum biases the quads. But the other thing for me was that like, on that, I can fail safely if I do. Yeah. And my brain is like, if I don't finish the rep, I'm fine. Like there's nothing's gonna happen. There's no fear. There's no like, oh shit, my back. Even if I have pins on the squat. And like that allowed me to get after it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think part of, obviously, that was much more joint friendly. And I was like, I can push the shit out of this. Now all of a sudden you see those gains. And that's the type of stuff that I think, all of these things are in the cauldron of program design. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like where the witch is making the magic. It's like these principles, but then you got all this kind of contextual art to it, right? That allow people to get the better stuff. And I think that as you yourself experience the changes in your life of getting more beat up and recovery in this, and then you train so many, there's a lot of people I trained that I fucked up. And I'll tell a little story, by the way. I don't know if my friend listens to podcasts, but he was a pro basketball player, Marco. And when I was learning all this stuff, like I had all this now, I was like, oh man, and he's like, finally, he's like, all right, like I'll let you put me through a training session. Now, by the way, this guy trains basketball every day, super high level player, whatever. And I was so like excited to like, everything I know. And we do a training session. It was such overkill. I mean, like, we should have started like with 3 to 4 exercises, 2 sets, me teaching him stuff, like pushing through some intensity. Man, we did fucking like 7, 8 exercises. I'm pushing the hell out of him. I mean, and he was so fucking sore that he couldn't train. He couldn't go like exercise basketball for like a week.
The thing you're training him for. Correct.
And it's like, I think and I admit this too, like I probably fucked up his experience with strength training for a while. You know what I mean? Like, and I felt horrible. And and it's kind of like, dude, but I know all this stuff and I put all these things in, like when I'm doing these things, like I can go play basketball the next day. It's like, yeah, dumbass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what, like, you have to go through some of that. And here's what's important. The reason why you need mentors, the reason why you need coaches is because you don't, for example, like, you don't get that. Like, that was my friend, thankfully. And, and he was like, it's all good afterwards. But it did, like, skew his whole thing about strength training. But imagine now you do that and you're learning on a client and you might, you injure them, or like their experience is so bad that like they don't come back to strength training. And like rule number 1 is thou shalt do no harm. And like also, I think thou shalt not scare away from the thing that will help you change your life. And
they won't tell you.
No, they won't. They'll just go. They'll just go and they won't come back. And it's like, you'll be like, oh man, they're just not serious. And it's like, whoa. Or maybe it was like you that didn't do the right things. And that is why I believe like you must have apprenticeship. Like you must have a mentorship model that you go through, because people will be able to teach you that. Like when you come here, I'll be able to go like, no. Here's what we're going to do. And here's why we're going to do it. And if you see this, and if you see that, when you ask that question, you get the intake form, make sure to, right? Like you don't have the time to make all the mistakes. And that's why you learn from people. So you cut down on them, and you're not gonna make no mistakes. Like, but imagine going through life making 75% less mistakes in the industry because you had a mentor that helped you. And you can.
And there's a few things that I think this makes me think on. One, I think there's a lot of people who it's not pro basketball, it's not college, but it's tennis. Whatever, is it pickleball now? Pickleball. Yeah. Everybody's obsessed with pickleball. But if that's the thing that they want to get better at, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a common one for us. We get a lot of like hobbyists. But if we are so passionate about training because we're strength trainers, that we train them too much to where that's suffering just because they're sore from all the training or they can't do it as much, it defeats the whole purpose of why they hired you. So even if they're not at that high level, you have to understand what are they actually hiring you for? Yep. Because if you're biased to 4 days a week, upper, lower, building muscle, strength training is better than anything anyway, but it's stopping them from doing the thing they need to do more often, you kind of defeat the purpose. So like that's a huge one of just being aware of your clients. Next, I won't say names because I'm just not that kind of guy, but it's a funny story. Now I can laugh at it. I had a client leave. It was more of a financial thing. And this is just to say there's a reason why great coaching is more expensive. We're talking about all this programming stuff. There's a lot of online coaches especially, but there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of gym owners who don't even write their own programs, that they are way cheaper for a reason. And it's really important. The number one cause of debt in America is health. Like health bills are literally causing number one debt in the entire country. Yet if we just paid for good trainers, good nutritionists, like if we actually invest in that stuff, we'd probably get ourselves out of debt, because a lot of that, and I've actually pulled up all the research for content purposes, a lot of that debt is not just your typical insurance. It's from all the shit you have to pay for, the prescriptions and the medical visits and all these kind of things. You guys just did a great podcast on the cardio stuff with Joel. Yeah. But like we could spend more money on trainers and nutritionists and save a lot of money of debt. But I say that to say this person needed to save money. Totally understand. She moved on. She hired another coach. She ends up coming back within 3 months and was just like, it's just not the same. It's just not the same. The programs, the nutrition, the coaching, the advice, like the real talk, like you being, and she was like, but I hired one of your past coaches. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, who was it? Says the name. They didn't work for me. And she was like, are you sure? And so I start digging through this person. They applied. I have their resume, but I didn't even know how to interview with them. Crazy enough, there's people literally going that far, saying that they work for somebody just for some kind of reputation to get in and sell a client, which is wild. And so I share that because, one, the client ended up coming back to me. She's been with me for a long time now. You have to prioritize the mentorship, the knowledge, the experience, all the investment on the front end. And the client, if you're listening to this, you need to invest in the people who have done that too. Because there's a reason why they are where they are, and there's a reason why they charge what they charge. Yes, I was more expensive than this other person. There's a reason for it. And lastly, we've kind of played around on this, and I think this is a really good thing for people to especially like leave this whole podcast with, is this idea of having founding principles inside your programming. So with our coaches, we have templates, all that stuff too. I ended up creating a list of rules that the programs need to abide by. And some of them are very specific to online coaching, because there's certain things that we can't be there to see. So for example, every session has to have a unilateral. You can have two, but you got to have one, right? Every single session, you have to switch the loading patterns. If you did a back squat, don't do a barbell reverse lunge. If you did a trap bar dumbbell or a trap bar deadlift, try not to do a dumbbell loaded lunge. Let's do a front rack. Let's do a sandbag. Let's do an offset. Why? Well, not somebody's gonna be fine if they do a dumbbell lunge and a trap bar, but if I can't see their posture, their position, their form, I want to make sure I'm avoiding any imbalances. We do one zone of apposition. So something half kneeling, something tall kneeling. Does everybody need to do it? No, but we can avoid not knowing the people who do need it from needing it, because we might not pull that from their assessment because I can't put my hands on them.
Yep.
But this is the kind of stuff that people don't see behind the programming. They just see a list of exercises and they just start, slapping stuff on. If you don't have these conversations with clients, especially in the online world, they're going to think, oh, well, this hits my glutes, I can switch to this one. Yeah, but this one is hip abduction. This one's hip flexion. This one biases the extension part. This one biases the flexion and the stretch and the overload. This one is more vulnerable for the lumbar. This one's not. Like, there's so many, even just the volume key. Well, with that machine, you can, like, your total tonnage goes through the roof. With this one, it doesn't. So yeah, the stimulus is totally different. It might still both be a hip flexion. It's like a barbell versus a hip thrust machine,
Yep.
But if we don't break apart this amount of detail, I feel like especially the online world, man, it's just going to keep going downhill. And it's unfortunate because for whatever reason, there's so many certifications, there's so many workshops, there's so many coaches and content, especially you were kind of alluding to it, like I was telling you about somebody that did it. It was a great video, 7 hip mobility things. And he might actually have ones like this. I would take him as somebody who would, but I watched it. I'm like, I need to do some of that. Where do I plug that in? Because I don't do a lot of hip mobility stuff. That's not my world. And so there's this huge gap of the actual, like, okay, here's theory. Now, how do we actually apply it? You know what I mean?
And that part, by the way, is like, look, I think that, I even think that like going to a coach and getting like 4 sessions is hugely valuable, because it's like in those 4 sessions, like learning how to lift, right? Like if you're somebody like, hey, I'm going to invest on more on the beginning, or like 2-3 months I train with somebody and then I go off on my own, but like I got a lot of, like, I think even that is an incredibly good investment. And then what happens is that like you become better at siphoning through like, I saw Vernon's mobility drills. Like, where do I fit them in? Oh, but these ones I can fit in the warm up. Now, the hip flexor stuff, this strength training, you know what I mean? If you got weak hip flexors, boy, like you're going to cook those suckers, right? Like, so where would that go into your training session? That's a different place, right?
That's literally the one was his hip flexor training, which is phenomenal. But I'm like, I don't know where to plug this in because I can't do legs after doing some of those.
No, and see, that's the other part of it, right? Like to understand, like, will this now affect my sets? Now, listen, you might be fine doing a double kettlebell squat, for 10 after that, but will you be, was it the best idea for you to go do 5 sets of 3 on your strength work, a back squat? I don't know, maybe not, right? So like maybe that gets better. That's in the weak link training work towards the end, right? And or this is the stuff I plug in on weak link training days based on a template, right? And again, you got options on this, right? Now the other part of it too, like imagine mobility training. For anybody that's done like FRC, kin stretch and stuff like that, I always say like, you can use mobility work as, imagine like 30%. It's like, that's my movement hygiene. In the morning, I'm going to go through my 90-90. And if I'm just doing it at 30%, that's like, it's not stressing me out at all. Like I'm going to feel better. I'm going to move better. In dynamic warm-ups, maybe it's at 50%. So I'm going to turn on some more muscles, right? Because I'm pushing into the ground with my ankle in front of the knee. Now, if I'm doing like straight up mobility work, strength work, and anybody that's been through kin stretch and, whether it's Dewey or Hunter took you through it, I'm like, dude, I'd rather deadlift for an hour than this is so fucking hard. Yeah. But it helps you, right? But that's strength training. Like we are going 90% plus of intensity, for enough time and enough sets and reps of this that it's like, imagine, afterwards you're like, I'm not going to do any. This is the training, right? So you have to look at those types of things and be like, and so there has to be some understanding of the principles. Yeah. What are we doing here, right? Same thing with the finisher. Like, is it gonna crush you if you do like a push-up finisher at the end of upper body or full body session? No, like you'll be fine, or you're gonna do swing imams and stuff like that. Like, no, you can handle that, right? But then it's like sometimes you look at finishers and it's like, damn, like so. For example,
it's like a mental thing.
Well, not only a mental thing, but like there's finishers. They're like, dude, that's not a finisher. That's a full workout.
Oh yeah.
I've seen like I do YouTube videos of like 20 finishers, right? And it's like, yeah, it's 20 different finishers. And then people on the YouTube will be like, dude, I did 10 of those and nearly died. Like, how are you going to do all of that? I'm like, bro, it's one. Just you pick one. You pick one at the end of the workout.
It's that like Metcon mindset.
Exactly.
Dude.
You know what I mean? So that part, I think that, look, man, there's no one podcast that you can do stuff in. I think that me and you were talking about kind of doing more of these carousels, like teaching this type of stuff and simplifying, but also, I like what Stu McMillan said is like, man, there is the part where I'm like, you can't simplify everything. I think for a coach, it's like, man, you got to get good at your stuff, and sometimes like simplicity is not the answer. I do think that like simplicity sometimes creates rules that people can stay within and kind of guardrails, like you talked about the bowling stuff, right? And there's value to that. I literally think I'm going to do a post that's like, I mean, if it's 20 carousels, it's 20. That's literally like the how-to. You see something you like, how do you implement it into a here's my templates, here's how you plug it in, this is how I look at it.
Nobody's doing it, dude. That's what, like, my upper lower one was 20 slides because it was impossible to do in less.
And it takes less. I mean, it takes time to do it. That's the thing.
But people love it because it's actually teaching that part. And I think, you said this, and we've kind of alluded to it multiple times. Training is a skill. I think people forget that. Like, it is literally a skill. Two people, a good example of this is I've programmed gliding leg curls, right? Where you hold in the bar like an inverted row, kind of your feet are up on a bench, and you bring yourself forward. Firing your hamstrings, right? Hips extended. And I'll program like max reps minus like 1 or 2, leave 1 or 2 in the tank. Usually like I'll give them like a range they're aiming for, say like 5 to 10, slow tempo. And I get like a lady who's brand new to lifting, training 3 days a week. She's like, I did 25. And I'm like, I do 8 and my hamstrings are yelling at me because I have a skill. I have the skill of firing that muscle. I have a skill of controlling my body a certain way. I have the knowledge to leave my arms like hooks. I'm not pulling myself. I'm just dangling. It's all hamstring. Isolating a muscle is a skill. Taking yourself through the movement's a skill. Keeping my hips extended while moving is a skill. Having a great trainer or a great training program to follow makes a huge difference when trying to achieve peak fitness or see a total body transformation. But finding either of those things online can feel next to impossible because of how much stuff is out there. Not to mention scheduling time with a trainer in person can be tough if you're a busy individual. But the Taylor Trainer app solves both of these problems because it's an on-demand personal training app that gives you customizable training programs based on your gender, your goals, your schedule, your experience level, and so much more. So stop spinning your wheels in the gym and use a system that's proven effective, backed by science, and is guaranteed to help you actually look like you work out. Head over to thetaylortrainer.com or visit any app store and download the app right now to receive a free trial so that you can test out just how effective my training programs are before committing financially. So then I have to show her, hey, like, this is how I do it. This is what I'm focusing on. This is what you need to focus on. Try this. And I give some cues, which is, again, another thing you learn from in-person training, because I pull out cues that I used in the gym. And when I say it, I'm like, think of this. It clicks with them. If you've never trained anybody in person, you have no idea. You're like, just do it. Like, just do the thing. Watch the video. This is me doing it. Can't you do it? But you have to understand how to connect with them like that. But that's a skill. So once I teach her the skill and she does it over and over and over again, now she can do it. Now she cut her reps by 1/3 and is getting more out of it. And if you want to learn a language, you don't try every once in a while to speak Spanish. You speak Spanish for 10 to 20 minutes every single fucking day until you're fluent. Throwing a baseball. I look so dumb throwing a baseball because I never throw baseballs. It looks different every time I throw it. But if I threw it every day, I would get the movement, and then I have a groove with it, right? It's like golfing. It's like shooting a basketball, anything. That's another thing. It looks totally different every time I shoot a basketball because I haven't put in the reps. That skill is what allows me to excel in it. And I think a lot of people forget that lifting is a skill. They think you just go in and you just lift. And when we have people doing a list of exercises or switching the exercises all the fucking time, you said 36 weeks of doing pendulum squats. Like, you're going to get the most out of it, right? And this is actually a really good way to look at it too. This is where we're not looking at rules. If I have somebody progressing on a lift and it's the end of the block, I might still keep that lift and change the other ones. I might change something about it. I might leave it exactly the same. But when we're just like, oh, they're 4 weeks, we got to switch to the next one because it's 3 weeks, then 1 week deload, then we go to the next one. Look at their intensity. They half time they don't even need a deload. for the normal person. Half the time, maybe they do, but it's like, when's their vacation coming
Life's
up?
a deload, man. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
16 weeks from now, cool. That's when they'll deload, And if you do the high-low model, it's kind of built in because you have good recovery. But the whole idea of this like rule book of like, you got to have equal volume across the week. No, you don't. You have to have these splits, upper, lower, full body, push-pull legs. That's it. No, you don't.
Even, hey, listen, this is another one too that like a while back, like I was talking to Mike Robertson about, but it's like, for forever we've been kind of, hey, you got to do more pulling than pushing. You got to do more, horizontal, like this much more horizontal than vertical. And it's like, hey, maybe in a lot of situations that might be the case. But what about somebody that needs a lot of like, scapular protraction, like a lot of reach, right? Mm-hmm. And man, like I might do twice as many reach exercises, which is going to be things like a landmine press, a push-up done well, right?
Think of a boxer. They like live there, dude.
Correct. But it's like if somebody's like very extended, their scap is just not functioning right. Like that might be the thing we need to get them in a better position, right? Yeah. And it's like, so then you look at a program and somebody look at a program and say like, oh, Luka, man, why are you not doing as much pulling with this person, right? It's like, because they're so extended, their lats are so depressed. Like we got to get them out of that, right? And it's you actually fix them per se by doing the opposite of that whole recommended, like everybody should do, 3-to-1 horizontal pulling to push and, 2-to-1 horizontal pulling to vertical pulling. And it's like, actually, maybe in a vertical pull position, again, you kind of get to tune down the lats for somebody. If you're doing that stretch position, you see Mike doing this a lot. My point is like, you use the exercise to get an outcome. And sometimes it's not like put everything in a box, right? Like, again, like we've been taught this. And I think that like you coach what you see. This is a really important factor, right? Like meaning coach, like you could put a program down, but like when you're watching somebody, it's like, oh man, I know I programmed this, but like I'm going to coach what I see. This person needs more of this. This person needs more, oh man, we went to like posterior chain training so hard. Most people's quads are so fucking weak. It's insane. It's why you put them on leg extensions and like they're just the quads are shaking. And it's like, what the hell's going on here? Like, we swung the pendulum too far. But again, like, yeah, with some people, you need more posterior chain work. For some people, it's like, man, you need quads. Like your quads are weak as hell. And it's like you can't, if you just kind of go the cookie cutter route, which is why I think, look, there's a time and a place to get the program that's like from somebody that you're following. Absolutely. But if you have a problem with things and you want to overcome an obstacle you haven't been able to overcome, that's why you get, more personalized coaching, more custom coaching. And the other thing that I wanted to say too, I wanted to kind of give a shout out, or let's say a shout out, like and opportunities to new coaches. Cody said, let's say you find a coach and it's like they're absolute, like more experienced coaches, reliable, have proven results, are going to be more an investment, and that may be many times the best fit. Now, for somebody like that's a new coach but busts their ass, they want to be good, and it's like somebody needs guidance. And this coach, for $50 a session, $60 a session will coach you. They're trying to get good, but they'll work hard. They'll care. Hell yeah, but you can't afford the $120, $150 hour or whatever semi-private coach. Both people win, right? Like you're getting somebody, now this is the key, right? The person that's like, they're going to care, they're going to try to get better, they're going to try to give you, bust their ass for you. And it costs less, so you can afford that. And they're just not as expensive yet because they haven't built up that experience. That's a great fit too, because we all started there, right? But I think the key here is like, everyone that really wants to do a great job for their clients, like they go home and they study, they figure it out, they do that, this, and the other. But I think in all scenarios, it's like when you're like, oh, well, I can't hire this best coach. Find the best coach that's affordable in your area. You're still going to get some feedback. You're going to go get a session with them and be like, man, I like how they coach. I like how they treat me. They're right. Like everybody that's new is going to have to learn. Now, if you're new, man, go and study, right? Go and study the greats. I think that's an important factor.
And ask your clients a lot of questions, because then they'll tell you, and then you'll go research, and then you'll be able to do the things they need.
Absolutely.
But you got to get it out of them, Do you think that there's I would say like a unless blank? So if we look at those principles, push pull, most people that you're probably going to be safe pulling more than you're pressing, right? Let's say like 1.5 times as much. If that rule definitely has do this unless blank. But like if we went down all those rules, because we have principles in place, and the more I think about it, there's always like, you're teaching your team this and you're like, all right, so this always in the program, but unless like this, if the client is like this, then you can do this instead. And then this is a rule that we always got to have, but unless, this, because then you got to think about this. It seems like there's always a thing. It's almost like you got to create these rules, and then it's like unless caveats that go along with it.
I think, by the way, I think those are useful, but it kind of goes back to, I think it's like Stu and Dan Paff at Altus call it the coach's eye. Right? They have a whole like workshop and like in-depth seminar on like the coach's eye. And, I think that like, and again, I'm more of a person that's like, I love developing people. So it's like, if I can help them have the coach's eye, like that's going to help them resolve all of those. Because if you put that, like if you go, hey, we're going to do more of this unless, this person has horrible scapular upward, rotation, then we're going to do this, right? But the coach has to know what that looks like. They have to like test for it. And so that is the coach's eye and or an assessment that they learn, right? So if I teach them that assessment, they don't need the rule, right? Now, I think the rule sometimes can be a trigger to like, oh, did I test that, right? Did I look for that?
Yeah.
And I think that's useful. But if they don't know what to look for, the rules are like weird. It's almost like the person that has no self-awareness that they're being annoying. And it's like, hey, make sure you're not annoying the client, with your body language, but like you don't know what to look for, so you're still annoying. But the coach would go like, hey, you had a interaction with this client, and you said that they seem like they're pissed off at you, and like you don't know what you did. So like I was filming you while you were doing it, right? And mute. What do you see? Oh, like okay. It does seem like, oh, wow, yeah, I see. I kind of look lackadaisical, like I don't care. My hands are in my pockets, kind of rounded. I don't have confidence. Like, yeah, right? Like, I'm gonna show you this, or I'm gonna go like, I'm gonna make you aware of it, so that like next time you do it a little bit better. And it's tough, man. It's tough because you can't put everything in checklists. Like, how do you, I always say this. I think systems and SOPs are important. Like, we're making a lot of them now, right? But what, like, for example, if somebody doesn't have, you've heard of this before, GWC, right? Get it, want it, capacity for it. And I create a rule, and the rule is, hey, make sure that, at the end of every training session that you're, doing something uplifting for the client or whatever it may be, right? And they don't have the GWC. They don't get that. They don't really want to do it. They don't have the capacity to do that. That rule will do nothing. So it means that the right person has to, be in place to execute that thing. And that's like, that's mindset. And that's also, I would say, values. Yeah. And the thing is, that's the thing about coaching, right? Like you have to constantly want to get better and be curious, and want to learn. And, I just signed up for shit. Like, I don't know how many things, but one of the last things that I signed up for was, Pat Davidson and Derek Hansen's like program design. It was like a 4 or 6 week course on hybrid program design. But really, it's everything we kind of touched on right now. And like Derek's a really good friend, and obviously one of the top sprint coaches in the world. Pat, like great colleague. Like we've had him out to Slovenia, genius dude, right? And I'm like, okay, let me jump into this and like see their thought process. Like honestly, like first 2 weeks. Derek's so good with the images of like, he makes these infographics, and I'm like, oh shit, I didn't think about that. Like, and even Pat was like, yeah, when you were talking about, how he gets people back from a hamstring injury, why the 10x10 protocol is so good. And like, even like lower intensity tempo intervals still restrain the hammy, right? Because it's still like at the end of the day, even if you're going at 70%, that gait cycle when you're upright, like can stress it, but at 10x10s, you're never coming upright, right? So you can actually build up this sprint tolerance up, and like they've seen results where, people are back way faster, and then they can go to sprinting like more upright, longer distances. And I was just like, oh man, like that makes a lot of sense. And like I actually know a couple of examples of like people going back, progressively doing tempo runs, but then restraining their hammy. Yeah. And it's like, because I want to be in the world of like top level coaches, because those guys are really training still people, they're extremely knowledgeable, and I can take more and more like knowledge and information and go right back and start applying it into my day to day. And 21 years of coaching, like you have to constantly have that, right? Like, or if it's prescript, level 3, or I go, it's again, or I'll watch the Performance Explained stuff from Corey and Vernon that did it, and I'm like, oh man, like there's a couple things there, man, that's really smart. I didn't think about that, right? Like, if you don't have that, like, what the hell are the rules gonna do, right? Because it's like you don't want to dive in to have that knowledge and understanding to help the client, which means that, it's kind of like, well, fuck it, I'm just gonna put cool workouts up there and like templates, and then I'm gonna sell my shit. And it's like, in the short term, you might be able to, even with great marketing, you might be able to finagle people, but over time, it's not gonna work. You know what I mean?
And that's where like people see influencers and think that can be a coaching career for me. That's not how it is. And at the end of the day, I think there is like you're here in Washington. There's another gym owner across the country, different demographics. You guys might have been doing the same exact amount of time. Same with me. There's people that have been doing it just as long as me, but maybe I work with more women. They work with more men. I work with more 40 to 50. They work with more 30 to 40. Like there's so many variances. I work with, for some random reason, I work with a bunch of people who are professionals in this industry, and they're working with a ton of delivery drivers and whatever it is. They run into a different issue that you would never think about. Like what are they going to have? Well, probably tight hip flexors, tight rounded shoulders. Like they're driving all day. How are they supposed to diet? These things present principles all stay the same. They have to create new methods to help those clients get through those things that you wouldn't have thought of because you didn't have that kind of client yet. And then that client might walk in the door. And now I know how to because I listened to a topic I quote unquote already know about, right? But because I have a white belt mentality, I'm going to keep on learning and learning and learning.
Absolutely. And there's a great example. I was on a call with John Pope the other day. We're chatting about a bunch of different business stuff. But John Pope, he's one of the guys that wrote Training the Elite, which is the best book out there for training, I would say, operators, right? And now, so think about, like, I've trained a good chunk of operators, but man, there's people that have done that 10x, 20x, 30x, whatever. Like, I mean, Kevin Smith in our group, obviously, Green Beret, has built an incredible online business. Pretty much like, two things. It's like if you want to get in the military, if you want to be a special forces operator, like that, like he knows his shit, right? And it's like, if I get somebody today, I'm giving a call to some people that are in my network. I'm rereading the book. I'm doing whatever. And it's like, because they have more experience in that specific. And by the way, me going through that process is going to make me a better coach. It's like, this is what I mean when people are like, dude, Luka, you've done it all. I'm like, no, like, man, I'm a sponge today, and always, right? Like, there's people in certain realms that all they do is like sprint stuff. So they're going to be better at me at sprinting. I'm going to learn from them continuously on speed, right? Yeah. And then there's somebody else in this space. And because I have a brick and mortar gym, I'm obviously a couple, if we count Slovenia, we're training so many different people. And I actually love it because I keep having to get better at different things in coaching. Yeah. And it just improves my total coaching skills, right? And I know some people are like, well, but what if niche and you just train one type of person? But the truth is like, I think you kind of shoot yourself in the foot because you don't expand your full toolbox, right? Mm-hmm. Where to me, it's like learning from all these different people. I get a lot of insights from what I already do, meaning like with the people I already train, this toolbox skill set is going to help me train this person, right? Just like I said, that training general population helped me become a much better coach for elite athletes, right? Because I built so many skills on the way to that. And I think that's where people miss out. Like, I'm just going to be the best hypertrophy coach. I guarantee you, if you like learn and study a lot of other, coaching aspects and people that like do great stuff in other pockets of the industry, it will help you become a better coach. Yeah.
But also, like, who's your niche client? You know what I mean? Unless you're literally Mike Israetel, you can't really just pigeonhole yourself like, I'm only going to train people to get super jacked, unless you're a pro bodybuilder and you literally have a huge following and you do just cater to that. And like, I guess I shouldn't say that, because if that's your dream, that's your desire, you should chase that. But know that like that's a long road. Gen Pop exposes you to so much knowledge, and then you can find what your niche is later on. I know for me, I never my niche became Gen Pop because I found that's just what I love anyway. It's just, we call it advanced Gen Pop because we're online. It's like these people like geeking out, they like reading content, and then they hire us, and that turned into a lot of coaches. But it's still it's everyday people. Maybe they want to compete in high rocks or do something like that. But in general, it's just this desire. I think a coach has to have, to your point, the GWC of getting better and being in shape. Like the people that argue, well, you don't have to be ripped. Yeah, you don't have to be. But if you're not in good shape, do you really love training? Like, I couldn't get fat. Like, I know it sounds brutal, but I couldn't get fat at this point because if I'm out of the gym for more than a few days, I really miss being in the gym. I genuinely like eating healthy and treating my body well. So it's very easy to stay this way.
And it got, because it's the identity part, that we've talked
100%.
about before. And I want to give an example. Like we said, like in the last month, we got 2 clients that we don't do a lot of one-on-one, but it was, and I'll make a point about why I think like on the coaching side, this is so important. And like the whole, general population that sometimes people are like, I don't want to coach the people. I think that's where we can make the biggest impact in human
100%.
people's lives. Number one. Number two is like this kid that got in a car accident, he totally never walk again. He's now on a walker and he can, walk, but he came in and was like, hey, I want to train 3 days a week. Like I've kind of exhausted like a lot of the PT stuff. I want to be pushed more. Right. And I'm like, one of my coaches, 2 of my coaches are actually training him. And we kind of talked and it's like, hey, like, man, I've never done this. Like, what do I do? And like, we went through all this stuff. Like, hey, this. Let me see the videos. And I've trained a bunch of, I would say a number of people with similar, I would say, obstacles. But we were sitting there and I'm like, man, what an honor, for us to be able to do this, man. Like, think about like, we're part of this. He trusted us with this and we get to be part of his story. Like, man, bust your ass. Like, I'm really thankful you 2 came and asked all these questions because you care, because you want to do a great job. And like, hey, let's all like think through a little bit more what we can do. Give me feedback. Mm-hmm. It's like it's a team effort. And they're just doing a great job with it. But I'm like, man, what an honor. You know what I mean? And I'm like, imagine like we can help him get to walking without the without the walker and stuff, man. Like, and that you miss that. Like if you, are like, man, I wish all I could just do is train these like super high level athletes, And it's like, hey, look, cool stuff. Like I love that part too. I really do. But like, I love this shit, because I feel like the industry, and Kevin Carr said this, and I agree, it's very much so kind of oriented towards like, people that already do stuff. And it's like, it's still so many people are afraid of like, coaching, because if you go online and you're looking at this shit, and I'll take that extreme example, the guy that would be like, put a rack on his back and start riding the bike, just the crazy shit, right?
Was it Juji Mufu?
Yeah. It's like going to be viral, all these crazy things go viral. And for somebody that's trying to get back in, too much of that can be like, Jesus Christ, right? And I'm like, at Vigor, we train a lot of elite, people, but like we also, meaning elite athletes, but we train everybody. I want it to feel safe. I want people to be like, I'm going to give this a shot. Like, man, I feel like comfortable here and confident here. And I think that sometimes coaches kind of shoot themselves in the foot trying to be too like, like, man, I know my shit. Like we do, and it's like, and you might be pushing people away that need this the most, right? Because there are people that like, if they got your program or my program or somebody else's program and they're super motivated and they do that shit no matter what, that's awesome. But, like they'd be fine no matter what. And I think that's why I love in-person coaching in the brick and mortar business, because I know that we serve a lot of those people that like, are not that. And like, they need more guidance. They need more help. They need more support. And I think my kind of call out is like, become the coach that can service those people. Because it's easier to service the people that are already kind of like, man, I'll do whatever, man. Like, give me the fucking program, and it's like, it's fine for you to do that. I'm not saying, but like, I think that if you're truly on a mission and it's like the purpose is, I hear everybody say the same thing, man, like we're on the front lines, like we need to make America like healthier, and like we're on the front lines, the coaches are on the front lines. But then a lot of times I see those same coaches saying shit like, like, well, I work with more committed people, and like even and the marketing is more like, because it's easier, right? And it's easier to go that route. And I would encourage people to be like, hey man, become more skilled at coaching, become more skilled at communication, at marketing, to be able to help those people that need it the most actually come in into your environment. You know what I mean?
If you want to make America healthier, then you have to gain the skill in order to convince the person who's uncommitted to be committed for their own sake. That's a challenge. Yeah, so if you're marketing yourself out of hard, difficult clients, like I understand what you're doing, but that's not noble. You know what I mean? And I think, there's so many situations like that. Terry was an amazing one that I got to coach with here years ago. This is a really good point for coach listening. In that moment, 100% not qualified. I'm like, I'm young. I don't know I've never been through anything remotely close to what you have been through, but she trusted me. So we went for it. Her life is dramatically changed because of it. That is so much more fulfilling than watching somebody win a bodybuilding show. Like, I put a lot of people on stage. They've all won different kinds of medals and places, and it's fun and it's really cool. But Jeff, my client who I helped with Parkinson's disease, more rewarding than any of them. Terry, more rewarding than any of them. I've had multiple situations like those, more rewarding than the hundreds of people that got crazy jacked and stuff. And granted, it took more time, was more difficult, a little bit more like nerve wracking because you're like, this is a big deal. But they put their trust in me. And like that alone, dude, is so, so powerful. But it does take a great amount of skill, and you have to be willing to do that. And even, we could say, well, like if I get a freak athlete, it's not hard to make him a little bit more freak. Yeah, but I'm going to be nervous as hell. You got Seahawks coming here, dude. Their paycheck is quite big, and that is on the line because you're training them. Yeah, right. And so that's a pressure. And the only people they're going to trust are people who have years and years and years of experience. So if you're sitting there going, well, I'm just going to train football players, good luck. Like, you got to put in decades before they're going to trust you, bro. Like, that ain't happening.
Absolutely. Or I would say if you come up through the ranks of, again, apprenticeship of some place that like does that.
And that's still years.
But that's still years. And the other part of it too, I still think you're missing out. And by the way, this is from experience from mentoring and employing, people that came from pretty hardcore S&C world, really good universities, colleges, and, because it is a different world, right? Because the person, like, a general population client, really, when you're in that sector, like, think college, those athletes have to be there, whether you're a dick or not. Like, it's like scholarships on the line. I mean, now with the portal, they can be out, but the point is still, right? Like, they have to come to practice, to training, to this, that, the other. A client here, the moment they're like, man, I don't think this coach understands me, they're out. That's it. It's game over, right? So to me, it's like, even with, and think about this, high school, college, let alone pro, but it's like, you got to be good communicator with the parents. There's all these skills that you have to develop that, to maintain that relationship, build. And again, youth development to me is years, and not like, pockets of 8 to 12 weeks here and there. And so I believe that, like, you really, I said it before, I'll say it a million times over, you got to be a great generalist before you become a specialist. And it's fine to go into a specialty, but I think the amount of hours that, in reps, I would say deliberate reps that you need is significantly more than what people would want it to be. Like, oh man, like, I'm going to go really specialize after a year. And it's like,
well, I think most of the people that, at least from my observation, the people who have a specialty, I feel like a lot of it kind of found them. Like, you know what I mean?
Almost everybody that I know in a specific field would say that's how it happened.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely examples, where it's like, this is what I want to do, I'm going to go that route. But man, majority of people were like, they would get a situation, and because they were committed to being a great coach, they did a good job with that, and that opened the door. And it was almost like, well, I have to learn this and solve this problem. And then it was like deeper down the rabbit hole, and like that took them into kind of that
like
space.
Celebrity trainers are that way. Like Ben Bruno, I doubt they were 20 years old, I'm going to become a celebrity trainer. Yeah, they just became a really, really good trainer, opened doors. All of a sudden now he's training Justin Timberlake and all these people and athletes and everything. He walked into that by just being a great coach. I mean, I remember I was reading his T Nation articles decades ago, dude. Like, people forget to look at those kind of things, You got
to go, what was it, man? Sam Parr said this shit. I was like, get obsessed with the process rather than the outcome. And what that means is, like, when you see somebody that, like, you want to be there, and you're like, man, I would like to have this many online clients and make this money and have this podcast. That's the outcome, right? Now, get obsessed with the process. And then, like, dig, right? What was the process? How many people did they coach? Like, how many articles did they write? How many seminars did they go to? Courses did they go through? Who mentored them? Who did they apprentice under? Like, get obsessed with that, and like, get jealous about that, because like, people are jealous about the outcome. Get jealous about the process, because then you're like, man, I'd really love to like coach a lot of people. I'd really love to like constantly study. It's like, oh, that's a different way of thinking about it.
Dude, I literally sent Ariel on my staff a text on Saturday. Me and Shannon were sitting there watching some movie with Blakely, and I was I'll drink on Saturdays. That's like my night. I'll have a couple drinks. I'll make like an old fashioned. And I'm sitting there and I started laughing. So I sent her this screenshot because I was looking at research on adherence. And I was using ChatGPT to organize it all because I'm putting together some like course material. But I was geeking out because there's some really good research on why people adhere. And a lot of it is back to identity and values, which is really cool to see. But then Shannon's like, what are you doing? What are you reading? And I'm like, oh, just research on adherence for normal people. And she just looked at me like I'm fucking crazy and then laughed. But I'm like, this is what you do when you're obsessed with the process. Like, I don't need to be doing that.
Yeah.
I can pay somebody to do that. But I send a screenshot because she probably does the same thing, Ariel on my staff. But it's like, I'll have a drink and read that before I do anything else because that's enjoyable. The only time I ever travel, like we're going to Nashville next weekend, it's quote unquote work. It doesn't feel like work, but that's the only reason I ever really like to get away, go anywhere away from my family is like, I want to be around other fitness professionals learning something different. You know, I think so many great training programs behind the scenes have R7 behind them. It's hilarious that people don't see it. Once you learn R7, you see that. But one of the things I'm excited about is to see Mike.
Yeah.
I've met him so many times. He's been on my podcast. I've been on his. He hired us. We've helped him. Like, I've known him for, however long ago when he came here for a workshop. I mean, dude, I was real young.
Yeah. Mike,
old Vigor.
Yeah.
But I'm still excited to listen and to hear from him because one, it'll be good to see him, but also even if he teaches the same thing I already know, I'm going to hear it again in a different way this time. You know, it's like when you see a movie for the third time and you're rewatching The Matrix and now you're seeing different lessons, you're seeing different things.
And the thing is like there's an evolution to each, you know. So here's the interesting part, right? Like why, and like I'm one of those people that like, man, I'll spit out everything that I've gone through and continue to go through. I've been in Mike Robertson's program, Design Mentorship, went through it again because you know why? Because he's evolved, and it's like I'm like, hey, what is he doing new? And then again, I said Derek Hansen and Pat Davidson, and you know, Dr. Jordan Shallow stuff, prescripts, going through all of that stuff, and on it goes. Altis, I'm game speed course, yada yada yada, right? Les Spellman stuff, because I'm like, they're also learning and they're learning different things that I'm learning, right? And so I'm learning different things that they're learning. So when we get together, oh shit, I didn't know about that. I'm like, you went through this? What'd you think? Oh, I took these things and they're really useful. So I started implementing them, right? And to me, it's like, that's the cheat code. People that you know are kind of like yourself in a way that they're always trying to get better. And they might go on a 3-year, crusade of learning a bunch of stuff. I haven't, consumed their stuff deeply for 3 years. Then I get their cert again, or their course, or they're new, or they go to seminar, or in-staff, whatever. And now I get that distilled 3 years of their knowledge. Now I can take and implement. That's so
fun too. Like I've listened to so many of your podcasts since we reconnected for the same exact reason. Because I was like, man, I'm interested in what he's dug into since I was. And it's funny because somebody actually asked me, like, how did you come up with your style of programming? I was like, well, I basically took Luka and Joe DeFranco and a little bit of Christian Thibodeau, and I kind of just started mashing shit together, maybe a little bit of the bodybuilding world, and I like came up with how I do things. But it's cool to watch that evolution. And so like I've gone back, dude, once I did the presentation in Supercoach, I started going through so many of those prezos and those calls and then your YouTube and then the podcast. And I'm like, it's super cool to see how that evolves. And then certain things you would say that I'm like, oh, dude, I forgot about that. Like that's a great book, or that's a great way to do it.
That's the thing too. Like there's so many things, that you forget because you don't really deeply know them until you don't practice them a lot, right? And I know there's stuff that I've, I did and it was great, and then I learned something new and kind of just let it go. And then later on, you're like, that was fucking stupid. This was always great. I should have never let go of it, but that's okay. You kind of relearn. But that, like the principle of that, right? Like when you're around people and you'll kind of, going back to that whole Cody Sanchez reel and like being around, like it really is, rubs off on you, right? Because you end up going like, damn, like all these people operate a certain way. Now they're different, and they kind of go different routes and have different things and irks, but like there's a kind of silver lining that goes through where like everybody does this. They're always curious, they're always learning, they're always, they don't have they're humble enough to be like open to learn and not just be like, well, I don't ask questions or I don't learn from this guy. Like I said, I've had mentors in back in the day, like, hey man, you got to be careful about saying like that you're in this mastermind or certification or this, that, the other, because, like, man, you're the guy. So it's like, I'm like, what? That's fucking stupid. Yeah. Like, no, like I'll say out loud everywhere I spend money and invest on and like, multiple masterminds I'm in or who I'm learning from, because I don't give a shit. Like, I'm trying to get better, and I'm going to give my best stuff to all the people I coach, whether it's in business, whether it's in the gym and performance stuff, right? Like, I would hope that people are like, man, this guy's constantly trying to get better, rather than like, oh, he doesn't know. I thought my coach knew everything. You know, it's like, man, fuck that. Like, I don't know. I feel dumber than I've ever felt, right? Like,
Well,
and I
then
know
they're
I know
paying
more.
you for what you already know and everything you're learning on a continuous basis.
Right? Isn't that like that's to me, like, isn't that the cheat code? I'm like, dude, I know that this person goes through crazy amounts of stuff and is in the real world, like training people or doing business. So I'm like, hey, what was your experience with all these things that you learned? Boom, you get that. I'm like, dude, it would take me so much time to do that,
Bro,
right?
even just the association aspect, like I read more since being around you again, you know, or just looking at your story more often. I'm like, God damn, this guy got another fucking book.
Yeah, it's
I gotta get it. It is a problem.
We're
like,
ordering another bookshelf.
all of
right
a
now.
sudden, like Amazon keeps coming to my house now because I'm like, I got to stay up to date. But being associated is a huge thing, I think, and just being in that environment. I also think that, and this goes down a deep rabbit hole, but we've had people, and I've actually had clients sign up because they've heard me talk about this when on that negative aspect. When your spouse is that, it's very difficult for people, especially somebody commits to health and they're trying to transform. And now all of a sudden they're opening up their mind to podcasts and personal development, and they start getting into it because they're like, wow, I'm learning a lot. And then they start losing weight. And then their significant others not, and their significant others like talking shit on it, most likely because they feel insecure. And I'm not going to try to act like I know how to solve that, because that's a very delicate balance. But that's a really scary place for a lot of people to be in. And I think that sometimes people avoid being in circles or avoid investing because they're worried about that. They don't go all in on themselves because they don't want, it's like the fear of success is kind of similar to the fear of failure, right? You don't want to fail and people judge you, but also if you get successful and you're crushing it and you're smarter now and wiser now and fitter now and healthier now, people are going to judge you because you're holier than thou and you're bigger. That shouldn't be the case. You're doing what's best for you, but it's hard to bring people up with you.
I'll finish on a crazy story that kind of encapsulates a little bit of what you're talking about, because it is, by the way, you know, there's I think this could be another podcast episode diving deeper into this, but I can't remember where I heard this, but it was like somebody that I know and was talking about how their parents smoked, you know, like, and they would have these like, okay, now we're going to stop smoking, you know, and they go for a little while and they start smoking again and again. And then what he recognized was that they, you know, their closest friends all smoke. And basically every time that they stopped smoking, they realized for them to not smoke, they would have to stay away from those circles, right? Because it's like everybody smokes. And also there's that part of the judgment, like, oh, you guys now are like stopping smoking type of thing. So their decision, you know, there's like, and then they didn't stop smoking because they connected the decision like, well, for us to keep our friend circle, like we're going to have to, we need to keep smoking. Now, you know, is that statement completely true? I don't know. And I don't think so. But the other part of that too is why it's so challenging, right? Because imagine like we're social creatures, we're tribal creatures. And so it's just like, man, like we're going to have to leave this tribe, you know, to do what is best for our health. And it's like, and sometimes, and whether it's conscious or subconscious, you go, I'm not willing to do that. And what you said is a lot of times it's that, like, I'm not where I want to be, but it's comfortable, you know, like it's known, right? This is why, like I would say entrepreneurship is so difficult, because you live, you know, even though we're planners and strategists, like it's kind of like the unknown, right? And it's the hardest thing for people to do. It's why people hang on to, you know, not good situations for better ones, because at least they know what they get with the not good situation. And look, I would say I'm not going to be a psychologist, psychiatrist. I think that you need to get extremely good at psychology as a coach. I think that is a skill set that's very necessary to be elite. You know, and I think you have to be, you know, I'm very much so like, hey, be careful about outsource when you need to, you know what I mean? But, you know, at the same time, I think what we can help people with is like realizing and recognizing the identity they want to choose. Right? Because at the end of the day, once a person goes like, you know what, this is what I want to become, and there's a associated behaviors with that identity, and you can get them moving into that direction, you can change people's lives. You know, and that's beyond sets and reps.
They're accountable to their moral values at that point.
To their, exactly.
And I think if you ask this question, this is what we try to do with clients, and this is because they don't want to give up that tribe. But it's also the only thing that can allow them to have both the tribe and the goal they have is if they're willing to have an uncomfortable conversation. Because if you ask the person, and this is the easiest way to do it, asking a client, if that person told you or acted in a way that let you know they will not be friends with you if you stop smoking, would you still want to be friends with them? And the answer is usually no, because they're like, well, no, a real friend wouldn't do that. Okay, cool. So you need to have an uncomfortable conversation. Hey, I don't care if you smoke. I'm not going to judge you. That's not my thing. I'm choosing to stop. Can you please support me in it? Because I'm really trying hard. This matters a lot to me. If they support it, it's all good. Everything moves forward. You feel better about it. You might actually even influence them, just kind of habitually to stop themselves. They might get better because of it. But if they say, yes, that's fine, and then you feel the judgment constantly or they're poking jokes, they're not a good friend. You're not going to want to be around them, and that's a good decision for your life because you're making your circle better. Or you just had the uncomfortable conversation. Now they're not going to give you shit anymore. Everything's good. You get the best of both worlds.
It is the courage to have that, even for coaches, transformational conversations with clients and again, not to tell them what to do, but to help people trip over their own truth, right? Yeah. To be like, hey, like this is what you said that you want. Like, it's going to require some things. Are you open to doing this, right? And I mean, look, this is again why like the communication books, the psychology books are so effective because even let me give you these are 3 musts for me for any coach. Crucial conversations. Yep. Then motivational interviewing and nutrition and fitness, and then coactive coaching.
Yep, of all 3 of them.
Let me add another one, the coaching habit. So those 4.
Thank you for arguing. It's a good one, dude.
Thank you for arguing. Yeah, I got that. Thank you for arguing. I haven't read that one in years. That's another good one. I could probably list like 30 of them. And I'm currently working on, because I get a DM every single day about, do you have a list of books? So I started writing an article that's like, it's called the best damn fitness career article on the motherfucking internet. But it's a lot of work. And so I'm kind of like, every week I do some hours of work on it, but it's going to be like courses, certifications coaches should take, the apprenticeship model, like why you should, it's very, very in detail, but then it's like books. Yeah. And it's like program design books. Then there's like communication books, there's sales books, like marketing. So everything in the fitness realm. So don't quote me on when I'm going to get done with it. It's probably going to be like end of December in January, because I do feel, the key is to like, I'm a very big 4x6 card person. But it's like, the key is to go through the books and then like take the things that they teach you and go and work on that right away. I think I hear so many people that like will go through the book and I'm like, what did you get from it? I was like, oh, this, that, and the other. How have you used that in the last couple of weeks? What do you mean? Well, the things that you learned, how did you apply that into a practice? Like, did you practice 50 reps that week with those questions to their client? No. I'm like, in 3 weeks, you will forget about the whole fucking thing, right? Like, and it'll be a good book that you read that gave you some insight, and then it's like gone. But it's like, if you can take just a couple of parts of the book that are practical and you go and actually, 50, 60, 100, the law of 100 again, right? 100, ask that question to 100 times to a client. Now it's in your toolbox, right? Now it becomes a toolbox skill. Boom, then go to the next one. Yeah. Versus, just the consumption part of it. Like you have to turn that into something that is a skill set for you. Because that's how you kind of just subconsciously, you're talking to a client. And I had one of my coaches that was like, man, how'd you do that? And I'm like, do what? It's like, you ask the right question and you do the thing and you show them this thing. And it's just like, you just solve the problem. And I'm like, well, I can't, it's like, it's a toolbox, right? Like I know I have, I'm looking at the toolbox and I'm like, I got to drill a hole in the wall. Okay, cool, this, but it's just so, like the toolbox is big and I have this subconscious thing where I'm quickly picking the right tools, right? And it's like, it's going to take practice. I can break down why I chose this, but you might not have that in your toolbox yet. So you have to go get that tool and get good at using the tool. Because at first, it's like fucking you're missing the nail with the hammer, right? And then you can do it blindfolded, right? Then it's like, oh, how do I use this tool? And that is coaching. It's like continue to expand your toolbox so that you have more tools and more angles of looking at a problem to be able to solve it, right? And I think that's the game for forever. But I think that's how you use these resources. And that's why you got to get your ass around, I say different masterminds and coaching programs and internships and apprenticeships and everything else. Dude, we could fucking do this for forever, which I love because we're going to start doing it monthly or something. And it's going to be around coaching. You know, it's like, I think that whether it's program design, whether it's like dialing in, I think what we should do too is like dial into one aspect. Is like, all right, like what happens if you get, how do you get somebody in general population to sprint fast, but they haven't done anything for a while? It's like, all right, we dive into kind of like that, right? Like, or it's like, hey, fat loss. Let's just dive straight into that. So we'll do a lot more of this because I think it kind of organically happens and get questions from you guys. So whether it's on social media, emailing us, send us like questions that you guys want to find out, because I think this is awesome. And we'll probably split this into 2. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how long this was. Adam will let us know.
I don't even know how long it is at this point.
With that said, whether it's Vigor Life Podcast, Choose Hard Podcast, go follow both of those. TailoredCoaching.com, correct?
Yep, TailoredCoachingMethod.com.
TailoredCoachingMethod.com. And then you got Vigor Round Fitness, you have .com, and you have BuiltToLastGym.com, and then you have LukaHocevar.com to check out all the resources that, you know, a lot of the things that we talk about and we mentioned. But we will see you guys in the next episode. This shit was fire.
Jesus.
Peace.